Angel Studios fans, it's Jordan Harmon, president of Angel Studios. We are so glad you're here, and we have the man himself. If you've heard of the Lunatic Farmer, obviously it's been all the rage this last month, literally with millions of views all over the internet and in the Angel Guild. We are so thrilled to have Joe Salatin himself, a hero of mine, join us today for this incredible live stream. So none other than the man himself, Joel, it's good to see you.
Thank you, Jordan. It's a real honor and a privilege to be with you. It really is. Yeah.
No, we're super happy to be a part of this. For those who don't know, I'm a huge, my wife and I, we love not just homesteading, but I hate even calling it alternative farming because I feel like it's the real traditional farming. We've kind of strayed away from how it used to be for thousands of years, but we're such big fans of this. And before the interview, I actually, I wanted to start this because Joel and I were talking about, how this has been impacting his world. And because we've just been so thrilled by the response from the audience and how much they're loving and resonating with this documentary, this incredible film. Joel, tell us what you were telling me about like the response to this film launching into the world and what you guys have been experiencing.
Well, it's a tsunami for us. Our phone, email, it's just been ringing off the hook, and just people wanting to. I want to buy 500 pounds of ground beef. I want to buy 20 chickens. I want to Can you get me 2 cows? All sorts of things like that. So yeah, it's a veritable onslaught, and we haven't experienced anything like this for some time. It'll be interesting to see how if it ends up being a bigger than when Food Inc. came out back in 2007 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty big, but that was only viewable in theaters. I mean, a lot's changed since then.
Yep. In
20 years, and so it'll be interesting to see. But the other thing we're noticing is all the calls. Wendy told me that these are the nicest people, so kudos to Angel and your tribe for being nice. When you're in retail and you can't always do what a potential customer wants you to do, being nice is a real good trait because
it is
as the seller, the business, if you can't meet everybody's demands right off, it gets frustrating.
No kidding. And I think, one of the things that I love hearing about that is there's kind of this resurgence right now. And I don't even know if I want to call it a resurgence, but the Make America Healthy Again movement has just really taken off in such a beautiful way. I was actually, meeting with Bobby Kennedy a little while back, and he was raving about you and everything you're doing, and it's just so exciting to see this kind of broader awakening of people going, hold on a sec. Everything in the body's interconnected. It's not just about like what optically I'm eating from the grocery store. It actually matters where this is sourced. Are you seeing that as well? That people are kind of coming around in a huge way where there's this new movement around health and actually getting things recalibrated?
Yeah, no question. And we obviously this has been the trajectory we've seen kind of moving ever since COVID. COVID. It woke up a lot of people. I mean, the faith that people had in the medical establishment dropped like a rock. The faith people had in the CDC and National Institutes of Health and that dropped like a rock. And so.
And then watching the supply chain break down and seeing all these alternative farmers who were looked at as lunatics for decades were the only ones who had resources or things to actually sell you.
Yeah, absolutely. We sold 6 months worth of inventory in 6 weeks. I mean, we had people in the sales building that said, I would have, if you'd have told me I was going to come to a farm to buy food, a month ago, I would have said you were totally nuts. I wasn't into that. You go to Walmart to buy, groceries, and here they were, in here. And so, and the other thing that stimulated this, I think, is just a general, the Maha movement and COVID combined created a kind of a new awareness of just overall wellness. In other words, does wellness come out of a syringe? Does it come out of a bottle? Does it come out of a pill? And there's a growing awareness that no, wellness actually comes from an immune system that you can build or you can tear down.
Yep.
And that we saw this really escalate last year with the RFK Jr. Campaign as the Maha movement took off. We were already seeing we were inundated with orders and sales last fall, and then to have this now on the table of that,
I love it. I love it.
it's like, yeah, it's just unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this. So
Oh
yeah.
man, that makes me so. I can't even tell you how happy that makes me because I look at my wife. I always tell people, think of the healthiest person you know, and then multiply that by 10, and that's my wife. She soaks her own beans. She makes her own sourdough bread. Everything's organic. She goes to a local farm to buy all of her, raw milk and all of her things. And so, people probably think we're crazy, but the reality is it's one of those things where she's done so much research, and she almost has not only an intellectual connection with this stuff, but a spiritual connection with this stuff, and that she's really resonating spiritually with how it was all meant to be created. Talk to me about that. I mean, you've been so open about the intricacies of obviously this type of farming, but God as well, and how they interplay together. How has that been accepted as you've been so open when so much of the world has gone more atheistic or agnostic in terms of his view?
Well, I think you need to realize that most of my career, and I've been out on this on the edge of this now for all my life, and I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I'm becoming one of the old geezers, in this space. But all my life I have been kind of the lone Christian in this organic, non-chemical,
Yes.
and that's one of the reasons that, goodness, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago, I took on the handle Christian Libertarian Environmentalist Capitalist Lunatic Farmer, because I frankly got tired of going, speaking at a conference and, oh, he's an organic farmer. He must be for abortion. He must be
Yes.
For more EPA intervention. He must be for all this, bigger government, public schools, no charter schools, blah, blah, blah. And, the typical kind of liberal thing. And it's true. The environmental movement definitely did grow out of a kind of a creation worshiping
Yep.
a platform. And so the creator worshipers essentially threw out the baby with the bathwater.
Yes.
And said, well, if you're a tree hugger, then everything you believe is a pox. So,
Yep.
our church is not going to ask, should we use styrofoam? We're not going to ask, should we serve, Kentucky Fried Chicken at a potluck? We're not going to ask any of these things. And essentially, throughout all of the stewardship mandates, and in effect lost that moral high ground on creation stewardship. So we caretake creation, not because we worship creation, but because we worship the Creator, and this is His stuff.
Yes.
It's His stuff. So the question is, if I were God, and I'm not trying to be sacrilegious here, if I were God and I had made this world, and I'm looking down and seeing, well, these people made a dead zone the size of Rhode Island in the Gulf of Mexico. I would say, well, you messed up my stuff. You got my satchel. You got my satchel and shredded some stuff.
Yes.
Or when we make three-legged salamanders or infertile frogs and eagle eggs that won't hatch, and now of course we're seeing. I mean, you're a lot younger than I am, but I can remember when there was like, one fat person that you knew.
Oh yeah, no. Even when I was younger, I remember that you just didn't run into it as much.
No, and one diabetic. I mean, you just didn't hear about this stuff, and certainly there was no such a thing as autoimmune diseases. It was just unheard of. And autism, that nobody was. There was no kid that was
That's
eating
right.
everything on a desk. When I was in school, and you never heard the term food allergy. I mean, if you wanted to have a birthday party for 4-year-olds, moms just got together and had a birthday party. They didn't
Yep.
spend a week on the phone with each other. Well, can we serve this? Is peanuts and gluten and all this stuff?
That's right.
And so what's happened is that as our culture has has um, has disrespected and dishonored God's order, it has created chaos. And this Latin lexicon that we've all learned to say now, salmonella, E. coli, food allergy, autoimmune diseases, all these things, these are symptomatic of a chaos that comes when you break down the creative order.
That's
And
exactly right.
that's what happens.
And it's discouraging from the standpoint of, as believers in a creator of all things, we should be the best creators and stewards of the entire globe. Like, we should be the people who are on the forefront of actually creating beauty inside of nature and in that environment. And we've, like you said, we threw out the baby with the bathwater and distanced ourselves because we're like, hey, we're not part of that hippie movement or whatever this, the liberal movement is. And it's taken us decades to start to wake up, and I'm grateful that we're seeing this awakening. But at the same time, there's going to be a lot of pain over the next years and decades of now. The beautiful thing about a body, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is as I've studied the body more and more, God was pretty smart in that He created a body that actually can heal, and it can do meaningful recovery even from taking it to very dark places. And so I'm hopeful that we'll start, it won't be like this, okay, we got to go cycle through a couple generations of people to get back to a healthy place. It'll be more of a function of the awareness will lift, people understand. I mean, there's simple things like I love seeing on X every once in a while, someone like this last week, one of these regional restaurants was like, we are now on a go-forward basis only cooking with beef tallow. And I was like, that needs to become the norm. People need to understand that there is a better way of doing this stuff, and those type of things, they really will change the health and the entire culture of the United States and the world. So it's really, really exciting.
Well, yeah, it sure is, and especially to watch you know, the faith community start to embrace this. The faith community's been I mean, I grew up, in the '60s. I well remember all of our whatever our religious friends, Christian friends, um, made fun of compost and made fun of, you know,
That's
um,
right. Exactly.
Yule Gibbons, and made fun, eating Christmas trees or whatever, and all of our farm. So I lived in this amazing bifurcated household where our Christian friends were poo-pooed everything environmental, but here on the farm, all of our farm friends were a bunch of bearded, braless hippies,
Yes.
and would actually come. Yeah, there was a little bit of weed smoked around here. We didn't, but our farm friends did, and I grew up that way, and I was always I didn't think much about it, but as I came into adulthood, I realized how how much tension there was within, especially the faith community, to so much that if you actually went to the elders of a normal church and said, "Hey, guys, maybe we ought to actually go down to the Salvation Army and buy a bunch of plates down there, and we'll wash them, and we won't have any trash to take out." Why?
Yes.
What are you? You some sort of tree hugger, commie pinko? I mean, you can't even have you can't even have a discussion, right?
Oh
So
man.
so that was where I grew up. So I think if you look at where did the seeds of this kind of development within the faith community start, I think it started with the homeschool community, because I can tell you very well back in the '80s, and early 90s, as our farm began getting some traction, we had a lot of media. We were in the National Geographic, Smithsonian, things like that. And people would come. 75% of the people who came here, visitors, were all very, very liberal. Coexist. It was the very liberal, very few faith community folks. But then when the homeschooling movement really took off, suddenly that shifted to where it was at least 50-50, if not 40-60, flipped the other way.
Yes.
I think what happened was that that the homeschooling movement created space for people to opt out of the orthodoxy of the orthodox narrative. And what happens is when you opt out of the orthodox narrative and find it satisfying, um, suddenly you look around and you say, well, what else have I been missing?
Hmm.
Something else. And so what happens is, it starts. Everybody's got their come to Jesus moment, their start moment. But then next thing you know, well, there's a garden, and then there's a beehive, and then there's a flour mill on the kitchen table, and there's sourdough mother, and there's a quart jar with mung beans sprouting on the
Now
windowsill.
you're fermenting sauerkraut and pickles and
Yeah, and now there's a canner, and then next thing you know, there's a dehydrator, and blah blah blah. And so what happens is that when you take the narrow way and you find it satisfying, you start looking for other narrow ways in recreation, entertainment, finances, education, health, food, relationships, all those things. You start leaving the broad way, the conventional narrative, and you start looking for that narrow way. And I think that we're just seeing this germination of that. It's just blossoming now, and of course what you guys have done at Angel has certainly helped bring that faith narrative to again to an option in recreation entertainment. And created. Well, we don't have to watch a bunch of sleazy junk. We can actually sit down as a family and be entertained by something that's worthy and trustworthy and of a good report. And if it's lovely and beautiful,
yes.
and that is a wonderful thing. And so I'm very excited to see the faith community begin moving from um, um, and I don't mean this in any kind of derogatory way, but moving from kind of an academic, systematic theology approach, and everything else, nothing else really matters, from a kind of a whatever, too heavenly minded to be any earthly good, to move from that space to realizing that the faith fruit manifests itself in a visceral way. And if any of the stuff that I talk about, it's I believe that creation is an object lesson of spiritual truth. And so what I want people to, when they leave our farm, I want them to say, "Oh, that's what mercy looks like. Oh, that's what abundance looks like. Oh, that's what love looks like."
Yes. It's honestly, it's one of those things where as you go out and connect with the nature and just more deeply connect with um, the spiritual side of your being, it's hard. It's always hard for me when people are like, I how can I believe in God? And I'm like, how can you not? Like, go watch something go from germination through, the creative process, and not think about a higher power or something more. Like, you want to be elevated to a higher power, even if you don't believe in it. And so it's beautiful to watch this incredible film that that you've brought your talents and gifts to, about your life and what you've done. I just could not be more grateful. For those who are just joining us, obviously, I'm Jordan Harmon, president of Angel Studios. We have Joel Salatin, and if you haven't watched the documentary, this incredible film called The Lunatic Farmer, you need to go watch it. It is touching on so many levels. It is beautifully shot. The storytelling is incredible, and his life's incredible. I mean, your life is something, and that was one of the things that I really loved. Is I'd watched so much of your stuff for over the years, but I actually didn't know your history as well. Right, like going back to your parents and your dad and traveling abroad and doing what you guys did. It was remarkable. Man, I could not be more grateful for your life and what you've done, that you dedicated it to this, and we're honored to get your life out into the world.
Well, it's very special for me. I can tell you that when Teresa and I watched it the first time, the rough cut, the first one, when you sent the rough cut and said, what's wrong in here, and we only found about one or two things that were kind of factually incorrect, and you got those corrected, but. We were just, I think the word is gobsmacked or whatever. There's something like that. We just, because we've been in, I don't know what, 20, 25 documentaries over the years.
Yes.
Either, at different levels of 100% to, 5 or 10% of a documentary. And this one really captured, it captured our essence, better than anything that we've had, and so it was really a special thing. And you guys, we just couldn't believe all the videography is beautiful, but how you tied in. I mean, obviously you had some stock video, you did other things, but you were able to weave a video element into almost every statement to make it stick.
Yeah.
And that's profound. It's powerful.
Yeah. The team, because I mean, every film requires, an entire team. It's like a village. Nate Wiltz and Aaron Wrench assembled such an incredible team to go and get this produced. And it's just, like I said, we're just so honored to get out into the world. But again, for those who are joining us, go to angel.com. You can join the guild and watch The Lunatic Farmer today. It is such an incredible film. It'll touch you. I'm certain it touched me and my family. And I watched it with all my kids and my wife just got to the end of it. And she was just like, it's one of those moments where she's like, man, all these 11 years of pain and suffering of creating Angel. She's like, I'm so happy because this is the type of, thing that we really created it for. And so, man, couldn't be more grateful. Yeah, we're obviously gonna close out here with a trailer, but Joel, thank you so much for joining us for this live stream, being a part of this, and lending your name to the Angel ecosystem and the Angel Guild, and thank you to the Angel Guild members who voted on this and made this possible and actually said, hey, we want this, because for those who are just joining, every film or TV show cannot come into Angel Studios. Even as an executive and founder, I can't greenlight something until the guild first says yes. Once they say yes, it can go onto the platform. And so all those who voted on this early on when they got the first rough cut of it, like it's just so, we're so grateful for the guild members for catching the vision and seeing what this is. So Joel, any last words, or we'll let you kind of exit us out before we watch the trailer?
No, just my parting statement usually when I do these kinds of things these days is when we look around the world and the dysfunction and the frustration and everything that's going on, it's easy to be frustrated or depressed or whatever. But my challenge to all of us is that we whatever we can do in our lives to be that beacon of hope and help when the world becomes hopeless and helpless will serve our Lord as good as anything we can do.
Amen. Thank you, Joel. Appreciate you and appreciate all you do.
Thank you.
You're called a lunatic, a bioterrorist, a con artist, a world-class bigot, and starvation advocate. What do you have to say for yourself?
What do I have to say for myself? Man, oh man.
Next speaker will be Joel Salatin, who is a farmer, lecturer, and author. He describes himself as an evangelical, Christian conservative, environmentalist, lunatic farmer.
He's kind of the godfather, not of just like homesteading, but of sustainable farming and a lot of these other practices that he's put into play.
Your approach to farming is so natural and so normal and so, in my opinion, non-controversial.
We were branded Luddites and anti-progressives, anti-science.
We got a knock on the door. You've been selling illegal meat, and we've confiscated it all. You know, Lord, if we lose this thing, what do you have in mind here?
It's never been like this. What happened? Regulatory, extortion, tyranny.
Them was the days.
Them was the days.
When I watch your method, it seems normal, it seems like common sense, it seems like old knowledge, but yet you're looked at as some sort of a wild man out there.
A lunatic. All right, it's probably time to go to breakfast.
Now, what is that weird flip thing there that you have? I haven't seen that. Is that
This thing's been in ponds and cow troughs and it just keeps on ticking, man.